Okay, so this is chapter 11 for global business, entering foreign markets. So, could you please describe how firms can enter foreign markets, firms that EY has dealt with, such as Kimberly Clark?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about China because China is a big market for Kimberly Clark. It's developed as a big market for them. So they every earnings release they talk about how many cities they are in China, and now there are over 100 cities in China, and they've been expanding ever since they first entered the country. So, and just so you know too, the way Kimberly Clark has to go to market is because of the products they sell. They actually want to manufacture in country as opposed to making them somewhere else and then bringing them in. So they've actually had to set up manufacturing facilities in the country of China. Now they started out, when they first started out, they actually did contract manufacturing. So they actually contracted with manufacturers of product and got them to make their product for them. In fact, we audited 3 of their contract manufacturers, but now they've started to build more and more of their own plants in country in China.
And so that just lowers just costs all around with labor and then transport, and then trade barriers also.
Well, there's 3 main things that they sell in China. One is diapers. 2 is feminine care products, Kotex. And 3rd is paper products. But by far, the products that they sell the most of and are most profitable are number 1, diapers, number 2, feminine care products, and number 3, paper products. Paper products is not going to be an area where they're going to focus on because they don't make much profit on it. And if you think about it, like for paper towels, for example, they're real bulky. They take up a lot of space. It's hard to transport them very far.
Yeah.
And the profit margin is very, very thin. So what they're really focused on is diapers and feminine care.
And then have they run into any political or economic risks as they've expanded?
Within the country, globally, yes. You asked me earlier about what was going on in Venezuela. So they were affected by the currency situation in Venezuela because Venezuela has been having terrible economic problems and they have manufacturing facilities in Venezuela. So they actually had to do a big write-off in Venezuela. But in China, I mean, it's a risk to go into a country like that. I mean, there was a little bit of a shock last year. I don't know if you noticed with China, where there's a little bit of a bump in their stock market, and it kind of sent tremors around the world. And there's still people that really question: is the economy in China really real? Because it's once again it's a state-run economy. And I've heard reports of them building cities and apartments where people don't really live, just to keep their people busy, just to have them building something, but people don't actually use some of the stuff that they build. I've heard. I don't know. It's because it's a government-controlled economy as opposed to a market-driven economy.
And then after they identify which market they want to enter, how do they determine their timing of entry? Whether it's like early so they can beat other firms to the same work, or they might enter late. That way, that the other firms might already have done the switching costs that they need to attract customers in this new market.
So as a general rule, Kimberly Clark is not a risk taker. That's not part of their culture. They're very, very cautious. They don't rush into things. So, like I say, it's always nice to be a first mover, but more likely they're going to really study a situation before they go in and really.
So they can avoid pioneering costs.
Yeah, and so their biggest competitor is, in that part of the country, in that part of the world, is Procter & Gamble globally. But then also there's another competitor called Unicharm, which is out of Japan, which is a fierce competitor. And there's another one, Koi, K-O-I, which is another competitive product that's sold over there in Asia. The Koi and Unicharm don't sell here in the U.S., but they're competitors for them over there. So they have no choice but to be in China. They can't not be in China. It's just too big a market for them, and it's growing. It's one of the fastest growth markets they have. Every single quarter they talk about what's going on in China, the growth in China.
And so how do they? You said they set up their own labor and stuff?
Yes, manufacturing facilities.
Would that be a wholly owned subsidiary, or?
Yeah. So you talked about JV, for example, in your question earlier. So in India, for example, they went with a joint venture into India with Unilever, and quite frankly, it hasn't gone that well. I mean, India could be a big market for them, but it's really not. So I think that they learned from that as joint venture that that's not necessarily the best way to go because you don't really have control over what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, India has not been a big success for them.
Have they also done any like licensing or had any turnkey projects?
Okay, so that we talked about that earlier. So they did do some contract manufacturing. So I don't know, I'm sure if that's really applies for or qualifies for what you're calling as licensing, but so they were manufacturing. There's manufacturing facilities over there that produce product, and they would contract. Kimberly Clark would contract them and say, okay, here's a diaper. This is how you make them. We want you to make them for us. Okay, as opposed to okay, we're going to build our own factory. We're going to hire our own people. We're going to make our own diapers. They actually had some contract manufacturers that contracted companies to make their product for them.
All right. Well, that's all.